A good pizza steel results in a crispier, browner crust and superior flavor when compared against a good pizza stone. However, the difference is not as big as I would have expected, and the steel still requires a really substantial preheat time in order to be at its best. About an hour, same as I would do with a stone. Those are the big picture conclusions of my head-to-head tests. I'm going to show you my methodology and my results, but first, let's get clear on the underlying science. Field trip to the big city of Atlanta and the Georgia Institute of Technology, where Dr. Shannon Yee does research on heat transfer. He deals with important things like renewable energy technologies. We're going to ask him about pizza, because priorities.
So the thermal conductivity for steels, for example, is on the order of about 14 watts per meter Kelvin. For ceramics, it's about 4 watts per meter Kelvin. So the thermal conductivity for metal pans is about 4 times higher than that for ceramics.
This is something of which most of us developed an intuitive understanding when we were little kids. Think about a playground. There are surfaces of all kinds in here. Plastic, rubber, ceramic, metal. They're all baking in the same sun, and depending on their color and such, they're all in generally the same neighborhood temperature-wise. But some of these surfaces are way more hot to the touch. In the States, you pretty much only see plastic slides anymore because they're cooler to the touch. This restored vintage metal slide is at a watering hole here in Macon called the Society Garden, and it works because it's well shaded. But when I was a little kid, all of us had the experience of roasting our little thighs on a really hot aluminum or steel slide underneath the blazing hot summer sun. That's not because the metal slide is hotter than the ceramic sidewalk. Their temperatures are probably about the same. It's because the metal is more thermally conductive. It transfers heat faster to things that touch it. But why?
There are 2 dominant carriers of heat. One we call phonons. These are the coherent atomic vibrations that are present in all solids.
Basically, when something gets hot, the particles that it's made out of get all shaky. And then when that thing presses up against something that's not as hot, the shaky particles inside the hot thing start to shake up against the particles in the cooler thing, and pretty soon all the particles are shaking at approximately the same rate. That is phononic heat conduction. Then there's electronic heat conduction, electrons hopping from one atom to the next.
Electrons can carry heat, right? And so in the case for your metal plate, you have both phonons and electrons because the metal is electrically conducting. In the case for your ceramic that's not electrically conducting, right, it only has the phononic contribution, right? So there's 2 modes at which you can transfer heat, through the electronic thermal conductivity and the phononic thermal conductivity, and the metal has both. The ceramic only has one.
Okay, so let's go to the oven and see what the science of this looks like in practice. But first, real quick, let me thank the sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit with the best value dinners. I know for a fact that a lot of you watch these recipes but never really cook very much at home. I think that HelloFresh is a phenomenal way to build some confidence in the kitchen and to open up your horizons. You just sign up for the plan that works for you. Classic, low-cal, vegetarian, whatever. And then they send you these boxes. Yes, you can and should recycle most of this packaging. The instructions are foolproof, while at the same time respecting your intelligence. All of the ingredients come to you pre-measured. You're not going to go to the store and buy some giant bottle of pesto and end up throwing most of it away after you cook the recipe. They send you what you need. And look at that plate. Absolutely delicious, totally square meal that took me a half hour. And HelloFresh meals are now starting at just $6.99 per person. But because you and me are friends, you can get your first 8 for free. $80 off your first month of HelloFresh. Just go to HelloFresh.com and enter my code, AdamRagusia80. Once you sign up, you can tweak it lots of ways. You can pause for when you're going to be out of town for a week. You can change your delivery day or your meal plan, whatever. The link and the discount code are in the description. Now let's go bake some pizzas. I want to disclose that the baking steel company did send this to me for free to review. However, they did not give me any money, and I am here to give you an impartial assessment. This is their basic model. It retails for 80 or 90 bucks and weighs about 15 pounds. Real heavy. This stone was made by Old Stone Oven. It weighs about 10 pounds and costs about half as much as the steel. It has been my friend through many adventures. I tested the stone on Saturday and the steel on Sunday. That way they could be on the same rack position for every single test, and the oven would be starting dead cold on each testing day. I preheated each respective surface on my oven's highest temperature, 550 Fahrenheit convection roast. For my first test, I baked a pizza after just a half hour of preheating. Here's the crust from the stone. Not bad, but not great. I was expecting the steel to perform better at 30 minutes, but look, it's really no better at all. This may be in part because that particular steel is 50% heavier than that particular stone. So even though steel conducts heat better, the extra mass just needs extra time to heat up. At 30 minutes, that test is a wash. Indeed, the baking steel directions do advise preheating for 45 minutes to an hour. So let's try this test again after 60 minutes of preheating. There's the stone pizza after an hour of preheating. Nice brown cornice, and the bottom crust is even dark brown. Really nice. Now, here's the steel pizza after 60 minutes of preheating. Look at those extra brown, almost black spots. We're verging on burned there, and I think that's good. The appearance of little black burned spots on pizza is known as leoparding or leopard spotting, and it's widely viewed as a desirable trait. It's arguably a defining feature of Neapolitan-style pizza. I've never achieved true leoparding on a home oven, but we're getting close there. To be clear, this is not just about cosmetics, this is about taste. The steel at 60 minutes produces a noticeably crispier texture and a superior flavor. Extreme temperatures cause chemical changes, not only in the crust, but I think in the sauce and the cheese layer as well. Changes that make pizza taste like more than just bread and sauce and cheese on top of each other, which is how these pizzas tasted after 30 minutes of preheating. In comparison, after 60 minutes, that is starting to taste like pizza, greater than the sum of its parts. I want to note that after 60 minutes of preheating, my stone here did a really good job compared to the steel, especially if you value evenness. Look at that totally even coat of brown. One explanation for this might be that I've been using this thing for well over a decade. It is very well seasoned, or has a really good cure on it. What that means is that the oil of thousands of pizzas has gotten super hot on this surface, and it has polymerized. Dr. Yi told me that polymerized fat layer isn't especially good at conducting heat per se, but it is a really excellent thermal interface. What that means is that it's really good at kind of reaching up into the irregular bottom of the pizza and filling up all the little cracks and conducting heat to them. My new steel might get better in that regard too, as it develops its own cure over time and use. For my third test, I wanted to see what would happen if I turned around and baked another pizza right after I baked that first one after a 60-minute preheat. I'm not gonna blow all this time and electricity on one pizza. I have to be able to bake two in a row. Yes, this one is gonna be a white pizza, and yes, that recipe is forthcoming. Here's the one from the stone, and you can see how much heat the stone lost baking the previous pizza. That is not as good. Here's the equivalent pizza on the steel, and yikes, that stuck pretty bad to the peel. Oh well, I guess it's going to be amoeba-shaped. There's the crust, and look, that is not as good as the previous pizza from the steel, but it beats the one from the stone for sure. I'm sold. I did not observe the really dramatic difference that other reviewers have noted, but definitely if you can get a big, heavy one, more heavy means more mass, more heat, a pizza steel does absolutely beat a pizza stone for most purposes. I'm still going to keep my old stone buddy around though. For certain things like thicker breads or thicker style pizzas, you might want something that conducts heat a little bit more slowly, otherwise the bottom will be burned before the rest of it is baked through. But for New York, California, or Neapolitan-style pizza being baked in a home oven, the choice is clear. Steel beats stone.